Alright, welcome to another Hyperspace League match in San Antonio, Texas. This match was held at Night Watch Games on April 6, 2019 between Brian and Jonathan Martin. John's running a wedge Luke 2 tubes list. It's a little bit different. It's a little beefy, has some shield upgrades. It doesn't have the torpedoes on it like you normally see, and it also has Saw Gerrera on 2 tubes, making him a little more offensive than you normally see. Otherwise, the list is pretty typical to most Rebel Alpha Strike lists, minus the torpedoes. Bryant's running a Rebel list. It's an interesting list. It has 2 Jedis. He has, I think that's Ahsoka and Mace. They're both running the B7 title, or the Delta 7B title. He also is running 2 V19s, Oddball and Tucker, I believe, and he has a synchronized console on them. Both players come into this match at 1-1. I think this is the 3rd match of the day. It was a quick 3-round tournament we ran at Night Watch. Interesting matchup. John's going to want to, essentially line up all 3 of his ships to take what could amount to 1 ship off the board around. And Brian's really looking to get the V19s in the mix, kind of let them be cannon fodder while at the same time doing a lot of damage. Interesting, he's running the higher PS V19s. Those you don't see a lot, but shooting first is always worth it, even though they're a 2-dice ship. Brian comes out with a 3 bank towards the top side of the board. John turning towards the bottom half of the board in the first round. He's been playing this list for a while, and it looks like he passed off a focus token there. He plays it slow and methodical. He kind of lets you come to him, sets up the initial joust, and tries to win it that way. Tucker is that first V19 that moved it. My screen's a little blurry today. The lighting wasn't as good. I'm in a different spot in the store, and I think my camera's, I don't know, it's bugging out on me. I gotta get a new one, but and then Ahsoka there moved. She's the yellow Jedi, and so I believe that is Mace that's moving now. And then Oddball is going to be towards the top of the screen. On John's side of the board, John's on the right-hand side of the board, and Brian on the left. John is, let's see, I think Luke is the one closest to the bottom side of the screen. Yeah, so that's Luke moving there, and then Wedge is going to be towards the top. John's list is kind of interesting because he puts the Jedi skill that lets Luke shoot at PS7 if he wants to. So, and I believe he has swarm tactics. I got to double check with the. I could be wrong about that, but I was under the impression they had swarm tactics on a wedge, so you could shoot at 7, 6, and 6, which would be kind of funny. But yeah, I know the list scrolled across the screen when it started, but entering into the 2nd round. Looks like Emilio's trying to play to the top side of the board. They're using the gas clouds. Those are newer with the latest expansion releases. They're a little silly. They don't. There's no real negative to putting. There's actually kind of a positive to putting them on the field, which is a little different. In the past, obstacles were meant to be just that, obstacles, but these newer ones are probably more beneficial to both players, which I guess is beneficial to nobody if that's the case. He's going to play the top side of the board, trying to squeeze all of his ships into that top little funnel, and then kind of spring down quickly onto John. John's going to play the bottom half of this board. He's going to come down the side of the board, and then he's going to turn around and look for a beneficial joust. John's list isn't very maneuverable. The T-65s are not very maneuverable. They're decent in the asteroid fields because they have some shields, and so they can make a mistake and land on a rock or whatever it might be. But you definitely want to engage your opponent fairly straight on, straight up with a joust or whatever. And if you can't get that, if you find yourself having to duck and dodge around asteroids and splitting your shots, it's not a very effective list, and that's kind of how you beat that rebel list with the U-wing and the two X-wings. Is you get them kind of bouncing the asteroids. That's also why I think the B-wings are a little bit more effective now. Now that they've introduced them into hyperspace, the B-wings. Well, one, they have more shields, but also they maneuver a little bit tighter than the T-65, and that sounds with the one turn, even though it's red, or that one Talon roll or whatever it might be. They're really tight maneuvers that you can use the B-rings in, and that's really beneficial when you're trying to kind of duck and dodge throughout the asteroid field. Where the X-wing, its shortest maneuver is the one bank and the one straights. Not having the one turn can get them into a little bit of trouble sometimes. Of course, the V-19s are very maneuver. They maneuver a lot like a B-wing, except they have no shields, and so they're very, very tight moving ship. And in the B-wing, you have the shield, so you can take a little bit of a beating while moving into position. But the V-19s you can't, and so. I know some people have had some success with them. I'm having a real hard time with using them. That slow movement. It's a different kind of strategy you got to use to kind of engage with them or whatever it might be. With a list like Brian's, the V-19s probably kind of want to float separately from the Jedis. Let the Jedis kind of try to swoop in from a different direction, but he's bringing them in as a cluster. And, it's always not a bad idea if you can get all those targets, all those guns on target in one round. That's pretty deadly. But otherwise, I would think you would want to move the V-19s in and the Deltas or the Jedis kind of flanking, because they're so much more fat. They're so much faster than the V-19s. Brian has a really interesting list. He's using some of the new Jedi. He kind of basically threw everything new onto both of his ships, so that's kind of cool. There's a couple players at the tournament today with the Jedis, and they do cool things until they pop, and then they're just as vulnerable as anything else. But Tucker 2 banking towards the center of the board. I think Brian takes evades here. Yeah, there he goes. I kind of like the evade on those ships. They're 2 agility, 2 attack, and so considering you're only rolling 2 attack, the likelihood of needing a focus is... I don't know the statistics on that. It seems like that's a... especially with like ships like Sinker in the Ark, and you can reroll one of them. It's kind of like the Howl Runner of the Rebellion, and that setup where you roll 2 red dice and you can reroll one of them, the likelihood that you roll 2 hits is pretty high. And then so you can take the evade, and it's essentially like it's an evade, but it's like a quasi reinforce, right? So you at least one shot you reduce by 1. So. And then you can barrel roll into the and then link into the evade. Makes him a very interesting ship to use. Again, I haven't had much success. I know people have had success with it, but I am not one of them. Oddball coming in a little faster. I think Oddball is the one where if you do a red maneuver, you can, if you're in the bullseye, you can take a target lock. I think he's looking for synchronized console to trigger on Tucker. I can't remember exactly what Tucker's is. It is, there's some sort of action economy down. I just can't remember off the top of my head what he does. Jonathan's still continuing his march down the bottom of the board. You can kind of see him trying to set up his joust there. And again, if you can't set it up on the, if you don't own the initiative and you can't set it up on the initial run, he's kind of baiting him into the fight. Jonathan has a good list. He lost earlier to John Medina in his upsilons. John's kind of notorious for his upsilons. And I could imagine John wants Jonathan Martin here. He wants to joust, but he doesn't want to joust with upsilon. So I was watching the end of his game earlier, and he just barely lost that one in the last couple rounds of shooting. But it's kind of the struggle with this Rebellion list is you're not aces. The Ewing maneuvers fairly well with that all stop, but he doesn't have Leia on it. Or maybe he does. I think he does have Leia. One thing with Benthic is you usually have the focuses and the double focus, and that's for Benthic that's really good because he can keep one and pass one off. But again, John did his a little different, where he put Saw Gerrera on so he can take the damage. And looks like John's gonna flip his Ewing. It looks like Brian has the initiative, so his 2 moves first, and then I don't think a stress goes down here. It must mean that John flipped Leia.
Rest of you guys, because she's still touching, so she doesn't get any action.
I didn't see him taking action though, so not 100% sure what he did there. It's a 3 bank from Ahsoka. Again, Ahsoka's in the yellow. In the yellow Jedi starfighter. I've really got to check. He has Brian has 2 of the newer astromechs on, and they trigger a few times here in some interesting ways. I think he has R4P17, so after he executes a red maneuver, he can spend a charge or perform an action. That's kind of what Ahsoka does anyways, essentially.
One of my friends, long story short, he was a mess sergeant. He had to go do something he didn't want to do because some unit lost like 500 pounds of steaks. He was like, hey,
he also has the spare parts canister. I wonder if he used that today. That's an interesting upgrade to have on your ship.
I'm like, is there a market for like?
That is Mace. Let's see if Mace landed on the gas cloud or not. No. He's taking the evade, but I don't think the Jedis have a white evade. I think it's a purple evade. I think they have to spend their force to do that. Yeah, he popped Leia, so there goes. That's Luke. Focus. He's not going to be in combat either, so Leia may have been a little wasted on this turn. No, he's turned around. That's what he wants. You can see he's set up for his joust. And fairly well, he's going to have Ahsoka probably in the next round or two, kind of popping out in front of him. That asteroid to the left of him is going to give everyone problems. And if Ahsoka either cut out fast or played this smartly, Brian might have the benefit of this just because John's not going to be able to turn into that as well as he'd like. I think in this round let's see what he does here. He might 3-bank into the combat, but Luke and Wedge are not going to have the same ability. They don't have the same. They're not in the same. They can't 3-bank, or Luke can't for sure. He'd 3-bank right into that rock. He'd have to barrel roll.
And as per usual, the guy uses normal amount of power
Took the evade. Not a bad idea. This game, the combat gets pretty hot and heavy here in the middle when they run in for the joust. Here comes two tubes.
Just gonna open these back up.
Yeah, two bank. That's a good move there. I don't know that Luke's gonna have the same. He took the target lock, so he's gonna go for the blast on Tuck. One bank by Ahsoka. Now Ahsoka has the chance to kind of get out of arcs here, or at least from Benthic. But Benthic's kind of already telegraphed his shot. He's going to go after Tucker there. So Ahsoka might be safe. If just take a focus, press on. Bump the camera a little bit there. All right, so let's see what Ahsoka does here. Target lock. Now, I wonder why Tuck got the target lock. I double check his ability real quick. Maybe it had something to do with his ability. Or maybe it had something to do with the astromech too. I haven't thought through all the possibilities on the astromech, and there's probably a lot of them that might have been a calculate token he put down over there in the corner.
You have to be at range 0 to 1.
Let's see, so we want Tuck. What's he doing?
Yeah. Okay. So go ahead and you keep your force back.
Tucker is a friendly ship at range 1 to 2 performs an attack against an enemy ship in your front arc. You may perform a focus action. Yeah, so that's gonna be. Let's see if he remembers to do that here. I don't know that I saw that, but. And if Ahsoka has, I don't know. I don't know where that target lock came from. I don't know what action Ahsoka took over there in the corner, but I guess it'll play out here in combat. There's Oddball, one banking in. So they have the U-wing pinned in fairly well. 3 straight from Luxie now. And it's hard to see the arc there. Maybe he has Tuck in that arc, but it doesn't look like he's going to have the chance to autofocus. Another thing that's tough about John's list is that 2 tubes with a perceptive co-pilot maybe, where you get the 2 focuses, allows for his 2 T65s to be double modded, where he can give the focus token to Wedge, and he can target lock, and then Luke can target lock and use the Force for his double modifications. Whereas here he's only going to be single modded, so let's see how that works out for him. So he's got Ahsoka range 3, so she's going to have three dice to be able to use. But
okay, so my 6. Yep. Range 3.
We'll see how that turns out. Let's see. So Wedge is going to fire first. It looks like range 3. Let me bump the camera again. I did not have good lighting. I should have got something. He's going to pick it all up with the target lock. I must have run a blank and 2 focuses. And there's 2 hits, 2 damage sitting out there. So Brian's going to roll 3 dice. And there's 1 paint out there.
That's on Ahsoka, right? Yeah.
Let's see what he does here with it. Looks like he's going to use a Force maybe.
Okay. You were shooting at Ahsoka, right? Yep.
Now he used the evade. Again, I don't know where he's getting that evade from. I'm going to have to look at that card again. I don't think he's using Force to get that. So here comes Luke's shot.
And the target lock?
Target lock. Looks like 3 hits on the table.
Yep.
Plenty of pain on the table. I'm thinking.
Oh, turns 2 of them?
I have to move some stuff around here so I can see this a little better. Alright, so it looks like she spent. So Ahsoka only has 2 Force. I gotta remember that, but she spent 1 of them. She's gonna take some damage there. Or at least I thought she should have. So there's a shot coming back at 2 dice, probably from Tucker. Yeah, 3, range 3. There's 2 blinks sitting there for sure, and I think he's gonna take 2 damage. I didn't have him count. I didn't remind everyone to count their damage out on the table. He just shot downtown from Mace, I do believe. Now, if he's a B-17, he should be firing more than that. Or if he's a Delta 7B, he should be rolling 3 dice. I'm wondering if one of them has calibrated laser. There's another 2 dice. I don't know why that's happening.
Was it on him? On 2 chips? Yes. Okay.
And Wedge was also
Takes the shield.
Looks like 1 evade there.
you need 1.
No, I get the shield. Alright. Oh no, do you have initiative? Yes. Yeah, you do. So yeah, you're shot.
And 2 dice from somebody else.
So that's bad.
I believe that was Tucker. 2 blanks.
Take a damage. 2 crits. It's on you. So it takes 1 hit and 2 crits.
1 hit and 2?
Yep.
Yeah, I think Brian was rolling too few dice there. I'll have to double check with them after this, but I'm sure they said that was a Delta 7. That's the one that gives them the yeah. Unless he's discalibrated, I got to put it into my my app later to see how those points swap. But if it's the Delta 7B, that gives them 3 red dice, and it reduces their agility by 1. It gives them some more shields. Looking at the side of the board there, it doesn't look like, at least Ahsoka doesn't look like she has all the dice she would normally have. Tucker took a beating there. It looks like he has 3 damage cards on him already. Now there are 5 whole ships, so that leaves him with 2 hit points left into the next round. And he didn't focus either, so he didn't use. He's not using all of his abilities as well as he could. Now it's towards the end of the day. I'm sure people are missing cues, and that happens in games all the time. But it seemed to me there's several cues missed on that one. Opportunities. 2 tubes, 1 banking towards Ahsoka. Probably positioning himself to use Leia and get out of town. Pass the focus token off to Wedge.
What do you need me to do? Well, he's doing a 1 forward. Because he's Ion. And then he can do if he doesn't bump, he can do a focus. Yep. That's all you can do after an Ion is a focus.
Tucker's got to focus. Ahsoka is probably going to bump there. This is they get into a little bit of a jam.
So she'll bump?
Wedge being on the board, though, he's not going to let stuff just sit around. So I'm sure Tuck's going to be dead. It looks like Tuck has 3 damage, so two whole left. If Wedge is reducing agility by 1, I could not imagine Tucker's long for this world. So.
I honestly thought you were going to do something totally different, and I done messed up again.
Here comes Mace. The sloop. I used Mace in my last video. I really like the 5K and the sloop on the Jedis. They can position very well with that thing. They're very cool little ships, but I just don't like their fill with the other ships. Like them by themselves are good, but when you mix them with the V19s or the Arcs, they don't come across nearly as. They don't seem to have the synergy that they probably should. Here comes Luke. An oddball. And see, he's not using Oddball's ability either. He should, if Oddball's ability is, then I gotta double check. But if that's the one where you get the target lock, if you do a red maneuver in the bullseye, and he's not doing red maneuvers, then he's not using his ability. I didn't get to watch Brian much today, but his list at first appearance seems like it has a lot of synergy, but in execution, it doesn't seem like he's getting there now. It looks like John's bumping up here. Now he is modded because he did 2 tubes, and 2 tubes is in good spot. Maybe not. He probably has 1, 2. He has 3 shots coming at him right now. John could erase Tucker before he shoots. And I can imagine that's what he's gonna do, but we'll see.
I'll shoot this guy at range 1.
And I might be misseeing it, but Luke might not be. Yeah, he took the range 1 at somebody. That's Wedge into somebody at range 1. I think he erased Tucker from the board.
How much more damage? I gotta do 2 more damage to him. Yeah, he'll burn both of his force.
I don't know if he wants to use the
the
focus or not. He knows he's taking a shot in return.
Reroll 1.
He rolled 1 for something. I can't remember.
3 hits and a crit.
Not sure where. Maybe that was a leftover target lock or something. He rolled 2 for some reason.
So you'll take 1 hit and 1 crit. 1 hit, 1 crit. Yeah, that's good. That kills him.
That should be a dead Tucker, yeah. So, I don't know. Miscues there, and I was making the same mistake earlier, but people were rolling too many dice on Wedge or whatnot. That's an easy one to miss.
And I will shoot at...
So, Oddball should get the first shot.
Shoot at oddball, so range 2, most likely. Range 2. 1 less defense dice because of Wedge's ability.
Oh, I'm sorry. You know what happened there was Luke used his ability to shoot at PS7. So Luke shot first and killed Oddball, and that's why he had that target lock to use. Now Wedge is shooting at someone else, and that's why they didn't reduce the number of dice when they at that shot. I gotta remember that John has that. I keep forgetting.
You got it.
Shot from Oddball. Looks like all paint there. That's pretty good. It's gonna put a small hurting on Benthic, I bet.
Yeah. Last shield. No more shields.
It's like a decent roll from John. See, now he rolled 3 with me. So I don't know why he didn't roll that earlier, but there's a blank on the table for John. So John's taking some damage cards now. So he's in the hole. If that's his first 2 damage cards, he's going to have 3 left.
And now, 2 tubes. Chris is shoot back. Range 1 on.
It looks like 2 tubes are now shooting into. Ooh, good
And I'll take 1 more damage.
And John will not hesitate to take damage to use Saw Gerrera if it means taking a ship off the board. That's why I like the list. Again, it conflicts with itself a little bit in that he doesn't have the multiple focuses to pass off like you normally do with Benthic, but it definitely makes it something to have to contend with, that's for sure. Ahsoka hasn't fired yet for some reason. Unless I just flat out missed it. And maybe that was, no. I was thinking that might have been Ahsoka that fired at range 1 into somebody, but I think that was Mace. So both V19s are off the board. Looks like
I have enough room.
John turned Benthic so that he's now facing the top of the board.
the inside.
It's a good position for him. It's that turning that 90 degrees is really good.
Middle, front, or back?
Now, oh, that's a good move by Brian. Get out of arc of Benthic. Looks like Ahsoka just bumped again.
Luke will end up bumping his death, I think.
Let's see what Luke's gonna do here.
Yeah,
If he
Luke will
popped
bump.
Leia, which he could have, there's a chance. No, he's bumping.
Luke bump.
I was thinking that he was going to K-turn or Talon roll. That would have been pretty good. A couple one straights out of the X-Wings. They're just going to bump up, but that's going to give Wedge a nice range one shot at both Ahsoka and Mace. So Brian's ships are probably in trouble.
Yeah, we'll shoot here. And Wedge will shoot at Mace. One less defense dice.
Benthic almost caught Mace, but moving second's always a good thing. There's 4 dice. Looks like 2 paint. Yeah, see, and I'm guessing Mace doesn't have Delta 7. I'm going to have to double take on that, but I bet he has, I bet Mace has calibrated laser.
Here, right?
And if that's the case, he should add a focus right here.
Well,
Because he's only firing as if he's a 2 dice ship, so.
anymore, so probably using the force would be good.
Yeah. For one hit, right?
Just one. Oh, I still have to roll dice. So. Just one.
It doesn't change two, does it?
It only turns
I've had
one.
some of the guys that played Brian today,
You get to roll one.
but he's playing it as if he has calibrated laser, except he's not adding the focus.
I can recover 2 in one turn anyways.
Yeah. So, 2 damage.
And is, yep, there goes 2 tubes. Poor little guy. One of my favorite ships in the game. I'm glad they made him relevant.
He goes to everybody in range 1, so him, Ahsoka, everyone takes 1 damage.
Discussing the outcome there. I forgot 2 tubes actually has Dead Man Switch on them. That's what he's showing. Yeah. So everyone took 1 damage there. It's going to leave John's T-65s fairly beat up. Probably more so than he wants. So John sent me the list earlier, and I'm going to have to double check what he sent me. I've been thinking that Brian has had Delta 7B this whole time, and I was kind of looking back through everything, and he does not. He doesn't have any titles, actually. Now, the more that I look at this, let's see, so Brilliant Evasion. I don't know why I thought he had Delta B. He has Brilliant Evasion on both of them. Okay, that makes more sense. And spare parts canisters. Okay, that makes a lot more sense. Because earlier when I was watching this, I felt like he was rolling too few dice. And that's because he doesn't have those titles on there. And so that okay. So that makes a lot more sense. And every time I see him rolling 2 green dice, that's because Wedge is shooting at him. Either way. Still a really interesting list by Brian's part. Brilliant Evasion's kind of cool. I'd like to actually use that on Luke. I think that makes Luke a lot stronger. You know, although it's always hard to kind of find room to stick force powers on Luke anyways. But and I think battle meditation's on one of them. I got to double check that too. I think
Yes, Luke, I got you.
double check that list. So no, it doesn't look like battle meditation's on them, but they're getting evades out there, and I think that's purple, and that costs. Unless Brian's just blowing up that that force instead of using it to boost her barrel rolls, using it to take evades, and then hoping to get more actions out of his red moves off his droids, which is a cool concept. So either way, there are 2 rounds left in this game. I'm gonna let this one roll. They're both playing very cagey. Brian, John's about to do a Talon roll and catch Ahsoka's sleeping here, and I believe Wedge tries to 4K and gets blocked up. But I think Ahsoka's not long for this world, and then after that, Mace is not very long. Brian does put a small beating into Wedge, I think, before he goes off the board. But either way, I'm gonna let this one run, guys, and then I'm gonna try to get some more videos up. Again, this was a local tournament, three round tournament we played. Had a good show out. Some more practice using some checking out some software and messing around with my videos. This is the third game of the day. Both players 1-1. I think John walks out of this one at second place after this game. Did pretty well today. Anyways, you guys enjoy the video, and I'll try to get more up soon.
So Wedge is going to shoot. You're reduced agility by 1.
Range 1, that's no good.
Well, I don't have any mods, so it really hurts.
I forgot to calculate and evade.
Oh, I'll take that though. 2 hits and a crit.
Focus is evade, that's all I want here. Got that.
So
I'll spin my evade.
spend your evade and you calculate. So you take 1 crit.
1 crit.
What's this do?
After you perform an action, roll 1 attack down and hit a crit. Gain 1 stress.
Okay. Yeah, it kind of hurts.
That does. Range 1.
No. Give me the dice. I got my 3. I got my 6 that I always have.
I have my 4 that I have.
Yeah.
Any recon?
2. Yeah, those are my 6. You have your 3, 4?
Yeah. You got 3 green and 4 red.
You can need to use a couple, go ahead. Those are yours, right?
I rolled that.
2 hits on Luke or Wet. Wait, so you take damage. He's almost dead. Ahsoka?
We use her droid. So I can perform actions while stressed.
Okay. That's Ahsoka.
We do all the prizes. Yep. That's my 2. So it's going to be a stress and evade.
Yep. Stresses.
She can't pass on an action, so we keep the force. So now it's
Yeah, because you're on range.
basically we're going to do the same thing but left.
That's Luke.
Yep.
He's still straight. Well, so critical damage, he has to do an action, right?
Yes, do an action. Okay. That's why I did that. Oh, that's a.
Oh, yeah, sorry, stress. There's Ridge.
I'm ready when you are.
Luke. On a 1 bank. The target lock. Wedge. Doing the same thing. Clears.
And stress.
He's gonna barrel roll. Yeah.
Alright. So then. Okay.
Luke's gonna shoot there. Should have art. Remember, one must die. Nothing. Ooh. Second time Wedge is whipped out.
The what?
Wedge just whipped out. Range one
What's
shot
that
today. And Luke is gonna shoot there, range one. Luke has some mods there, which is good. Luke will use both force.
Both force?
Yep.
So that's on the base, right?
Yep, so one. And take one damage. They're 3 hull, so that'll kill Mace. How many hull are they? Yeah, he's dead. Woo!
No bueno.
Sako does have a shot though. She got a shot here on Luke.
Yep. 3, I assume.
Yes. No, range 2, sorry.
There?
Gonna spend the force to barrel roll.
Recover one.
Give her 1 hit.
Does she have juke on her?
No.
No.
Oddball did. Would've been nice though.
Spend the force. There we go.
And then over here.
And turn, recover force. Alright. Alright.
Yep.
What's she doing?
Back here.
Bumping. So I wasn't
Maybe not. Most likely. Oh no, she won't bump. Doesn't clear. Oh, it's a 2. So.
Yeah, it's 2. No, I was like, wait, really? I was like, oh shit.
Well, she doesn't clear her stress though.
So it's not obstructive.
I wasn't worried about the stress. I still have another antidote that's broken.
Yeah.
But the fact that I can't do any actions.
You have to say die each time.
K turns?
4K turn on him.
Spend the focus.
What do you got him?
Yeah, he'll be doing his talent.
Okay.
Yeah. That's exactly what I thought we were going to do.
Yep. Alright, shots. Range 1 on 4, Soka.
Yeah. I get 2 right.
Yep. There we go.
1 hit.
1 crit goes through. Ahsoka. She's not damaged yet? Dang it.
No damage.
Roll
yet.
shield. What's the crit?
Before you engage, roll 1 attack down and hit result separate damage.
Okay. And I'll shoot back unobstructed, range 3. Use a force.
2.
Yep. That's fine. Yeah, 2 crits and a hit. She has that. What's that? She has that in her talent, right? That turns 2.
Yeah.
So she'll take a crit.
Suffering additional damage. Oh, that's good.
That's it?
That's it.
That kills her? Oh, alright.
Way to go.
Good game.